I was always really consistent and just really enjoyed the sport. And it's, as I've been doing it for so long, it's part of who I am.
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show presented by Voleridge Health. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and today I'm excited to have an extraordinary guest, one of the brightest stars of the Paris Olympics and the latest sensation in the world of triathlon. She recently captured the silver medal in a fiercely competitive race, showcasing her grit, her determination, just years of hard work. She has solidified a place among the world's elite. Without further ado, it's a true honor to have Julie Derron on the show today. So welcome, Julie, and thanks for joining me. How are you?
Hi, Greg. Thank you for having me. It's a huge honor for me, and I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. What have you been up to this morning before we get cracking into the past few weeks?
Yeah, at the beginning of the week, I came back from a race in Beijing, so I'm still a bit jet lagged, I would say. And yeah, the trip just takes it out of you. But I'm back into training. So I did a long run this morning, and then I drove to St. Moritz, where I'll be training for the next couple of weeks. And when I got here, I just had an easy swim to loosen off after the trip. And then we get back into everything tomorrow.
You're unbelievable. And look, I got to apologize. I just started this show without actually just saying congratulations. I feel like I just skipped right into where I want to go with this show. And I skipped right over the fact that first, massive congrats on, what was an outstanding performance, because you really took it to them. So huge congrats from me on that. I know you've had a lot of people pouring out their congrats to you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's still sinking in, the race I had, and looking back, I'm just incredibly proud of what I achieved on that day.
And so, okay, now you're already back racing. Was that which Beijing race was that? Was that the Beijing International or what?
Yeah, it's called the Challenge Beijing. So
Okay.
I think they didn't have a race for a few years in Beijing, but now they are bringing back the Beijing Triathlon, but it's now a Challenge family race.
Okay.
And so they invited a few of us there, and we just had a great time. They looked after us really well. They made sure we got to see the Wall of China, which is so impressive. So it was generally just a really nice experience, a good hard race. My first race on the TT bike in quite a few years, and actually my only my second race on a TT bike. So something I'm still getting used to, but really cool to try something new.
Nice, good on, and apologies, but how did you go?
I came third. Actually, Paula Finley, she won the race. She was really great on the day. And Lucy Byram, she came second. So,
Okay.
yeah, we had a great field of girls there, and it was a hard race.
Nice, good work. And it's hard to get back sometimes after what I would imagine was quite an emotional high. Paris Olympic Games, not just a medal, a silver medal, and really closing in fast to Cassandra Bogram, which we can dive into in a little bit. But did you find coming back home, it's a pretty huge going back home celebrations. Was that a massive high for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been so much happening since I raced in Paris, and it's a different kind of stress than we are used to, and a lot of unknowns and unfamiliar situations. I'm not used to being recognized on the streets of Switzerland, so that's definitely something new. But it's I mean, with an achievement like that, that's what comes with it, and that's the nice things as well. I've had some great invitations. I got to be on the Swiss TV, and as a triathlete, that normally doesn't get that much attention. It's just really great for the sport as well.
And did you get Nicola Spirig, obviously one of the greatest ever to do the sport, and then Daniela Riff, the Swiss women for sure. I mean, there's some solid men too. I'm not leaving the men out, but you really conquered the world for so long. Did Nicola Spirig reach out to you? Have you spoken to her since your medal?
Yeah, actually, well, I've been training with Nicola for a few years before she retired, and she's been a great mentor to me. I could learn a lot from just training with her and observing how she's going about being a professional triathlete. And I actually also talked to her before the games and just picked her brains about everything involving Olympic Games. And then she was actually there on the race day. Like, she was there in Paris in person. I got to see her just before the start, where she wished me good luck, and then also at the finish line. And yeah, she was super excited for me as well, because she also saw how where I started, how much I've been working towards having a result like that. And so she was, yeah, super happy as well.
That's awesome. Well, I want to start at the end, and then we're going to go back to the beginning. That's what this show is going to be like. We're going to be rewinding, but we're going to start at the very end. 300 meters to go, Paris Olympic Games. You're in second place. To me, it looked like you were even closing in on Cassandra. I don't know. I want to know what that feeling was like. You make that final U-turn. You know you've got the medal solidified. The deafening crowd. I probably can't even feel anything. But take me through that final 300 meters all the way to across the line.
Yeah, that's actually about the exact moment where I realized that I was certainly going to win a medal, because before it was the four of us running together, and then about a K and a half before the finish, Cassandra attacked, and I tried to follow, but I couldn't quite keep up with her. But I was running in second, but I didn't really know what was happening behind me.
Of course.
And I also couldn't hear what was happening behind me because the crowds were so loud, And so I was just running quite scared, to be honest, and just thought I have to get to the finish line as quickly as possible, because I always felt like the other two girls were right behind me. And then I got to that U-turn, and I did the turn, and I saw no one was behind me. So I was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to get a medal. And the second thought was, maybe I can get to first, because I saw Cassandra still ahead of me. So firstly, I wanted to, just make sure I get to the finish line and make sure that I get a medal. And then the second goal was to maybe even try and go for the gold. Obviously, I didn't quite make it, but it was just such a great feeling to run down the finish chute. And yeah, it still hasn't sunk in 100%, but just realize that I had such a great race, and that I was going to come second at the Olympic Games.
And so you cross that line, and there has to be a sense of relief. The pain is stopping, because it does really hurt. But then you see Cassandra, Beth Potter closely follows in behind you. What do they do? Take us through that next phase for those of us that have only finished fourth or not gone to the Olympics. What happens next? I mean, you're at the finish. You're like, wow, I just did something that remarkable. They whisk you away. What's the next things?
Yeah, I was really emotional. I think I started crying almost immediately, and then I saw the other two girls, and they were crying as well. So that makes you tear up again as well. So it was definitely really emotional. And then, someone comes and takes you out of the finish area, and then the first person I think I saw was the team physio. So she was super happy as well, obviously. And then you start going through the mixed zone and talking to all the media people. So because I got a medal, it took quite a while to go through there. And then obviously I had a doping control, so my chaperone was with me and just kind of led the way. Normally you would have the medal ceremony quite quickly after finishing the race, but because the men were racing after us, our ceremony was also scheduled after the men's race. So I had like 2 or 3 hours to get everything done. I saw Nicola, I saw my coach, so I could chat to them, and then I went to do my drug testing and get dressed up in the uniform that you get to wear on the podium, and that was really special. And then I had we got to do this medal celebration, and that's after that is actually the first time I got to see my parents. So until then, I only managed to call them, but because everything is so closed off at the Olympic Games, I actually didn't manage to see them. But after the medal celebrations, I got to see them, got to hug my parents, talk to them a little bit and show them my medal. And obviously they were super proud as well and quite emotional too. And then, yeah, I got whisked off to go to the Swiss TV studios and do more interviews there. And what was really nice, actually, the House of Switzerland, they organized a medal celebration at the House of Switzerland. So the Swiss staff, the Swiss Olympic team, they organized that all my friends and family and the Swiss team and my coach could come there and, yeah, just have a nice dinner together. And that was really nice because I wasn't sure whether how to coordinate
Mm.
everything and see everyone. So that was easy to just tell everyone come to the Swiss house at that time, and then I could see them all. And that's also then when I saw my sisters, who were obviously a really big part of my,
Mm.
yeah, my journey as well. So, yeah, a whirlwind. I think I got up that day at 4 o'clock, and I didn't get back to the hotel until 12 o'clock. So it was a full on day, but I was running on
Oh man.
adrenaline, so I wasn't getting any tired.
Yeah, and you're right though. Around the Olympics, logistically, it's just really tough to see family, to see friends. People are sending you texts or notes, and you're like, "But I can't go there. I can't get over there, and I can't bring you in." It is a logistically a tough place. So, big shout out to the Swiss House for organising that for you. And you touched on your sisters, both of whom have also raced professionally. Nina is still racing professionally. Have they still, do you guys get to train together? You've got different coaches now, or do you guys kind of just see each other at races and go head to head?
No. Actually, we here in St. Moritz during the summer where we have our training base. I actually live with Nina, so we are
Perfect.
really close, and we also train together. She's also part of the Trisada squad, so
Mm.
um, we do a few sessions together, or we train at the same time at the same location, but have our own sessions. But we are really close, and Michelle, our middle sister, lives in St. Moritz full time, so we actually are quite
Ah,
close still, and, yeah, see each other a lot and support each other, keep each other honest as well, and call each other's bullshit when we know that someone is not behaving the way they should. But no, they are a huge part of my life.
I love it. I love it. It's, I went on the PTO website, the Professional Triathlete Organization website, and looking at your results and that kind of thing. And what's great about this website, it often has rivals listed. The four closest athletes that best rival you, and it's got your sister there, Nina, as one of your rivals. I
Yeah,
thought
I
that was
actually
pretty funny.
saw that. I looked at the rankings the other day, and I think
Yes.
my ranking dropped because one of my races from last year was dropped out of the ranking system. So I saw that she was a couple of spots behind me. So I was like, "Are you coming for me? Are you getting after me?" And she's like, "Yeah, watch out! I'm
Well,
coming
no,
for
she's in
you."
front of you now on
Oh,
the
is she?
PTO.
Oh,
She
yeah.
on the
There you
PTO
go.
ranking. Yeah, she's launched up. She went up
So,
6
yeah,
spots just recently.
the order has changed. Now I have to chase her.
You've got a T100 wild card, right? Coming
I
up?
did. Yeah, I'm
Oh, you did.
racing
You already.
Ibiza
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. So I'm really
Okay.
excited about that. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yes.
really nice to see how I go there.
Yeah, because let's go back to the start of this year and talk about your preps, because you've actually got quite a bit of, and looking at your past, you've got quite the experience at this, call it middle distance. I know the T100 is even a little bit shorter than that, which I think will suit you nicely. But let's go back. You started the year quite early with your racing. Was that always the plan, to kind of get plenty of races under your belt early?
I think it's just sort of the way it panned out. I was training in China
Hmm.
from the beginning of January, and then there was just the opportunity to race a Continental Cup in Malaysia, which was an easy travel. And, yeah, we used to blow the cobwebs out a little bit and just get back into racing. And then at the beginning of the year, most of the races are based around Asia or happening around that area. So we just took the opportunity to do some racing to get into the groove of racing. And then once I was back in Switzerland, I did two half Ironman distance races as preparation for the Olympic Games. That was always part of the master plan of Brett. He did a
Mhm.
similar preparation with Nicola before
I
the
remember that.
London
Yes.
Olympics, I think. So he was like, I know that works. And yeah, I also enjoyed those kinds of races, and they gave me a lot of strength, a lot of endurance, and also more confidence for
Mhm.
my shorter races. So I did quite a few races in the beginning of the year, but then we also did quite a big block of training just before the Olympics, because we didn't want to travel too much and just stay dialed in and get the work done.
And so I looked at the results, and you've got a couple of wins along the way in Chengdu, and then Rapperswil and Walsey. Is it, how do I say that? Walsey. I never get
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
Um, and so you've had some wins, but the one sort of World Series race in Yokohama where you finished 12th, and that was in early May. Was that when did the confidence start kicking in? Because a 12th is solid, but it's not Olympic podium. When did you start to go, okay, things are starting to click?
Yeah, I think I was already in quite good shape in Chengdu when I won the World Cup
Yep.
race, and then I think 2 weeks later I raced in Yokohama, and I think the issue there was I just missed out on getting into the first bike pack, and
Mm-hmm.
that was quite, yeah, mentally for me it was quite disappointing, because I thought I was in shape, I thought my swim was pretty good, but I just sometimes there's seconds or 2 seconds that decide about making the front pack
Mm-hmm.
or not. But I still had a really good run in that race, so I tried to, yeah, look at it quite objective and just
Mm-hmm.
take out the positives and know that where I need to work on. So yeah, you can always say what if, but I think if I'd been in the front pack, I would have had a, yeah, better result than 12 for sure. And um, yeah, the confidence didn't come until really late, until the games or before the games. I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks before racing in Paris, I talked to Brett and I said, I think I can get a medal. I don't know. I don't know if it was a session or it was just building up. And I got this feeling that I could actually medal if I had a really good day. And I told him, and he's like, okay, great. And now we forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of
Because he didn't want me to put pressure on myself. And I
course.
think that was a really good way of going into the games. I just tried to know that I am really, really fit. I worked a lot. I knew all the sessions that I'd done and the times that I've run, or yeah, whatever I did in training, and try to take confidence from that and still look at it as it's like any other race, just a race where you try to execute the best you can and be as well prepared as possible.
Yeah, well said. And it's one of those things where you want to have that self belief, but then you don't want to put that extra pressure on you. You don't want to put that gorilla on your back, and it really is about just focusing on the process, not the outcome. But it's at the same time, there's a little excitement that comes in every now and then when you're like, wow, my work that I'm doing, I'm starting to feel it. And it's okay to sort of acknowledge the work you've done, but it's like come back and just keep focusing on the process, and the outcome will come. And I love when I think Yokohama, you described it really well. Those couple of seconds sort of meant the difference between 12th and being on the podium potentially at that race. And but what a great sort of thing to have 2 months out from the games. So it's a little slap in the face to say that's not going to happen again. So you're very in tune, you're very focused at the right moments out of the swim and onto the bike and ready for the bike breaks, like you were in Paris. It was like probably the perfect the perfect scenario happened to you, right? Like it's a little reminder.
Yeah, I think so. And, probably maybe if I'd medaled at that race, people would have been talking about
Mhm.
me a lot more going into the games, and that would have been a negative pressure for me. So I think it was a good reminder that I need to do better in those crucial moments, but that
Mhm.
I'm actually in a pretty good spot also compared to the other athletes.
Well said. Now you mentioned, you were looking at some of your key sessions and you could see that they were really coming together. Can you share with us what a couple of the key sessions that you've done? I mean, I trained with Sato gosh, another lifetime ago, before you were born, I think, in the late 90s. And I know he always had his key workouts back then. I think he's pivoted a little bit, but I still think at the core, he does a lot of the same kind of work. Is there anything you're willing to share in terms of key sessions that you drew your confidence from?
Yeah, I think one session that I've already talked about is I did, as I mentioned, I did the race in Walchsee, the 70.3
Uh-huh.
race there, and it was on a Sunday. And already a week before that race, Brett told me, okay, so on Thursday we'll do 21 800s on the track. And I asked him, so you mean Tuesday, not Thursday? No, Thursday. It's like, but that's 4 days before the race. And he's like, yeah, you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, I don't already want to know 5 days before before the training what I'm gonna do. I want to focus on today and get through today and not have to think about that big session coming up. And then I tried to forget it, but I was quite nervous, honestly, before that session. But I had two guys of my training group pace me, and so it was 21 times 800 meters on 240, and then 200 meters easy, and we would always start on 4 minutes. So that was a really big session, but I think that's one of the sessions that gave me a lot of confidence, because it's also one of the sessions that Nicola used to do, and Brett would always tell me that Nicola would do that session. So I was really proud that I managed to finish the session, and that, yeah, it just showed me how much I'd improved. So that was one of the key workouts, more mentally, I would say, than physically. And then after the race, we would always, on the track for the running, we would do a lot of 800s on the, in the end, it's 3:30 per K pace. So just to get used to that pace that we most likely would be running at the Olympic Games. And I think pretty much was the pace that we did in the race. And I think in the other two disciplines, it wasn't any standout session, more so being able to put day on day and week on week and just stay healthy, stay relatively calm at mind, in the mind, and just know that I'm stacking fitness.
I love Brett's training. It's always very race specific. And you say 21 by 800 and everybody freaks out. And it's like, well, actually, when you're doing it on the 4 minutes, you're allowing the heart rate to come down. So you're never overstressing the heart rate too much. You've been building to that for months and months or years. And for everybody listening, when she says 240 for 800, that's a 320K pace and just over 33 minutes for 10 kilometers. So it's really on the pace that you're ideally wanting to race off the bike. And you're training the musculoskeletal system, the nervous system to work at a certain pace that become very much like clockwork. And I love that he's still doing those workouts. I'm still trying to figure out what the 21 and why not 20? Is there a reason for that?
I think it's because it's the half marathon in the 70.3 races, but maybe it's also like, if you can do 20, you can do another one, just to prove it to yourself.
Yeah, you're right. It is the half marathon.
That's that.
It's the half marathon with the 200 float, of course.
And it's also a really good session for me, because I feel like in running, when I get into my rhythm, I can just keep running. So it's actually a nice session where you just get into the rhythm, and then once you're rolling, it's not easy, but it's not as hard as you would think if you did like an 800 all out, So you just, as you said, you dial in whatever you're racing in.
I think it's like those workouts and I don't mean to bring it back to me, but I remember I always thought when I used to do the 4400s or whatever, and it was like the first 7 were awful. It was like, but then...
Yeah, that's true.
And then after that, you just kind of hit your groove and away you went. And I don't know. I mean, there was a little fatigue towards the end, but nothing too much. I just always found that The early ones were tough, but you did that before the half Ironman Walsey or challenge. Did you do similar right before Paris, or what did you do
Yeah, I think
the 3 or 4
about
days before that?
a week before Paris, I did 15 times 800. So
Mm-hmm.
not as much, but still trying to hit that pace. Yeah, and I did all of my preparation in St. Moritz, where I also feel really comfortable. So I think that was a key aspect as well, to be in an environment where I feel really comfortable, I feel happy, and I don't have to worry about too much else. Um, yeah, and for the swim and the bike, we just worked on being really strong, especially with the swim in the Seine, with the current. We knew that you'd have to be strong,
Mm-hmm.
especially on
Mm-hmm.
the way swimming back. So there I would do quite a lot of work with paddles in the pool.
Mm-hmm. So, but San Moritz, when did you come down? Because San Moritz is about 6,000 feet for Americans, 6,000 feet, which in meters is, what is that? You tell me.
It's about 1700,
Yeah.
1750s,
So
around
it's very
that.
similar to Boulder, where we were, maybe a fraction higher, about the same. When did you decide to come down? Was it just a couple of days before?
Yeah, I went down to Zurich the Friday before racing on the Wednesday, and
Mm-hmm.
then on Saturday I went to Paris. That's how we. Yeah, I actually would have preferred to arrive even later,
Yes,
but
yes.
the way the briefing and the course familiarizations were planned, we had to arrive on Saturday, so
Mm.
that's how I did it. Um, I am originally from Zurich, so I could do a stopover in Zurich, and then like this, I could break up the trip and didn't have to do a 7-hour train
Mm-hmm.
ride in one day. So that
Oh,
worked out
perfect.
quite well. I mean,
Perfect.
I'm quite used to going up and down from altitude, so I feel like it doesn't affect me too much. But I know that it's a difficult topic to plan yeah the drop down before races. So for me, it's worked quite well, and as I've done it for years, I'm also not as sensitive, I would say.
Well said, because my next question was going to be about sort of, I've talked about altitude a lot on the show, and even myself, it was always trying to figure out, I'd never want to race between that 3 and 10 day window, right? So it's like I either race right away, to your point, come down and just be able to go boom, or wait for 10 days. But again, probably a lot of that's just in my head. It's
Yeah,
like,
I think it's also people respond differently, so it's
hmm
really
hmm
trial and error to find out what works for you. And I mean, as you said, I always, when I come down from altitude the first day, I'm like, wow, there's so much air, this is great. I
yes,
could run like so fast and I wouldn't get out of breath.
yeah.
But then yeah, you have to find out what works for you, really.
Yeah. So, okay, now you've come down from altitude. You've made your way over to Paris. Um, was there an excitement? Was it nervous? What was the in your gut, or were you just kind of like just keep focusing on the process? What was your mindset like that sort of the couple of days leading up to race day?
Yeah, I think I was quite nervous until I got to Paris, just because of all the logistics. I didn't want to
Mm,
forget to bring any of my gear. And I was also, yeah, excited to see what the village is all about. And the first 2 days in Paris were quite stressful because you have the media commitments, you do the check-in in the village, you have to settle in, everything is bigger, everything takes a bit longer just to get familiarized. But then I tried to keep it as normal as I would for any other race. And I think the day before the race was the first day that I didn't have any other commitment. So it was really nice to have just a normal pre-race day as I would have for any other race.
mm,
And yeah, I think I just tried to be excited and positive to be in Paris because it's such a big opportunity and something that doesn't come around very often. So to
mm,
just,
mm.
yeah, we work so hard for making it to the Olympics that when you get there, you should try to enjoy it and not be miserable because you have a race coming up, but try to make the most out of it because it's, yeah, once in a lifetime opportunity.
I love it. So you sound like you're somebody that handled the potential pressure and expectations, both from, those expectations are often internal are the greatest. Often family and friends and sponsors and everybody else, you think their expectations for you are massive, but it's really quite internal. But you sound like you had a pretty good grasp on it. Was that something you were constantly working on? Are you somebody that uses mantras or walk outside deep breathing, or is there any of that, or is it just kind of just roll with it and keep focusing on just having a good time?
No, actually, I was especially in the weeks leading up to Paris. I had moments where I was really really nervous, quite
Mm-hmm.
stressed out as well. So I definitely have those moments as well. And yeah, the self doubts too. If you could do it,
Yeah.
whatever could happen. And I try to work a lot with um, not necessarily, I wouldn't call it meditation, but just like deep breathing, body scanning, just finding your inner focus as well, and try to rationalize the feelings as well, like accept that you feel this way, but also talk to yourself in a good way, and refocus, and yeah, get the positive mindset back. So that's something I've been working on quite a lot,
Good on
especially
you.
at the beginning of this year. I also um, I did a race in Hong Kong, a World Cup, I think in or April, and
Mm-hmm.
I put a lot of pressure on myself because I thought, oh, I trained so hard. Now I've been in a really good shape. I need to do a really good race and show what I've been working on. And obviously, I went into the race with too high expectations of myself, and that it didn't work out as I hoped to. Hope to finish the race. So that also taught me that I can't go into the race thinking like that. I need to just focus on the next step and can't focus too much on the result. And I think all those little experiences, they just help you for the big race.
Well done. I'm telling you, it's like some of these things, it takes a lot. It took me a long time to figure out a lot of these things, but you figured it out. I remember I quote Dr. Tommy Wood quite a lot on this show. He's come on quite a few times. Big shout out to Tommy. And, you know, and I love this quote, what you think has a direct impact on your physiology. And so when you unpack that, it's like you can be thinking positive, you can be thinking negative. Either way, they're going to have an impact on your physiology in a negative or a positive way. And it's like controlling the mind through whatever parameters you're using. Just keep doing it, because it's you can see the greatest athletes in the world. They're so fit, they're so strong, and yet they turn up. And to quote Seth Pepper, who's come on this show, he's a performance coach as well, mental performance coach. He's like, yeah, the gorilla just sits on that back. He calls the expectation gorilla, just sits on that back, and you got to remove that expectation, which you did outstanding. So congrats on that. But now, race morning, 4 a.m., wake up. Actually, I have a question from the audience, from Rodrigo Donalicio, and he said, "What was the different strategy she had in mind if the swim was cancelled?" Had you given that any thought, or were you just kind of just focused on this being a triathlon?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about what was going to happen on the race
Yeah.
day. And as you know, the men's race got cancelled the day before and moved to
Mm-hmm.
our day, sort of. And the contingency plan was always that if the swim couldn't happen on the Wednesday, they would automatically move the race to the Friday, I think. So yeah, if we couldn't have swum on Wednesday, we wouldn't have raced at all. So I try to not um, think about it too much, because you just cause unnecessary stress if you always think, oh, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? You can't influence it, right? So you just have to focus on what you can control.
Mm.
And we discussed it with the team the night before, because the way the weather looked, we were pretty sure that they were going to push through to have the race on Wednesday, because it was raining on Wednesday again, so it would have affected the water quality for Friday. So yeah, we were quite sure
Yeah.
that the race was gonna happen, but I just my strategy was to plan for the race like it's gonna happen as a triathlon, because that's what we prepared for. And if it was gonna change, I'd have to adapt, but that's what everyone would have had to do as well. So I think we were all in the same situation, and you can only control what you're doing and how you're reacting. So that's what I tried to do.
Good on you. So you stayed focused on it being a triathlon. If it got moved to Friday, you'd sit down with Brett and your team and figure out, okay, the new tactics. And it sounds like you guys, with the kind of work you were doing, you would have been more than prepared anyway. And it would have been just okay. And knowing Brett, he's probably got the instructions to you: make it a tough race, make it a hard race. I can almost hear him. You know, it's people that come out of the Sato squad, they're built hard. You know, you learn that a hard race is the way what you want. So for you, I don't know that the tactics would have changed much in the sense of just make it a tough race. But look, 4 a.m. alarm goes off. What time's the race start? 8 o'clock, wasn't it, or is it earlier than that?
No, the race started at 8 o'clock, and yeah, you're correct. My alarm really was at 8 o'clock, at 4 o'clock. Sorry.
Yeah.
And actually, the first thing I did was check my phone to see if the race really was going to happen, because they would always send a message at 4 o'clock or just before 4 o'clock, letting you know about the status of what's happening. So I checked my phone and saw, yeah, the race is happening. So I told myself, okay, it's race day, let's go. And I actually went to the gym at the Olympic Village to do my wake up run that I usually do. And it was like 4:15. And as I was walking to the gym, some other athletes, I think they were coming back from partying because they'd already finished their racing. So that was quite a funny situation. I was like deep into my preparation, and they were maybe also a bit tipsy coming home. So that made me laugh in the early morning.
That's brilliant. I that flashback to New York triathlon. Every time I've done New York, you know, the race New York always starts at 5:45 in the morning, and so yeah, you're riding your bike through the streets of Manhattan, you know, at 4 a.m. and all the partiers they're almost still going. It's like they're not even coming home; they're in the middle of it. But that's hilarious. So you went and did a quick little warm up run, came back, breakfast. Got yourself packed up,
yeah, breakfast at the dining hall where only triathletes were having breakfast. And then I got onto the bus to go to the venue, and that took about 35 minutes. And that's actually, I think that morning, that's the time I was most nervous, because I just had to sit there and wait till I got to the venue. And yeah, you can't do anything. So I just started to think about the race and realized that today is the day. So I was getting a little bit nervous, but tried to calm myself down, just go through my preparation, and think about what I had to do when I got to the venue, and just calmly listen to my music, and relax as much as I could.
On that, what do you mean? What are you listening to? I'm always curious. Everyone's walking around with headphones on. I wasn't terribly much a headphone music person before race, but what are you, calming music or pump up music?
No, it's more like pump up music.
It is pump up?
Yeah.
What have we got?
It's a weird mix. It's like everything from Eminem to it's just the hits. Yeah. There's a Justin Bieber song in there as well, but it's just it's a weird mix, but songs that I quite like to listen to.
We're going to have to share that with our audience. We're going to have to figure out how we can all get our hands on that, because I want that pump up music.
Sure.
I need that. I need that before I host a podcast, before my next meeting. I want it. That's awesome. All right, well let's move forward. I want to talk about the race. The swim. It looked like some people went early, some people went late. It was hard to. The gun went off, and I think all of us are like, it looked like there were a few people left behind.
Yeah, I was one of those people.
Yeah, I didn't want to point you out, but was it you
okay.
didn't hear it, or did you feel like they all went early? What
No, happened? I didn't hear anything, and all the people were jumping in, and I thought, they're just going early, and then they used the horn a second time, like a lot louder, and that's where I heard it. So I thought, okay, I hear a horn, I'll jump in and start swimming. And I think the start was discussed quite a lot after the race. And I believe if if it hadn't been a river that we swam in, they would have called us all back. But because it was
Wow.
a river, it would have taken like 10-15 minutes to line us all up again. So I think they just let us go and work it out.
Did
But
you think that it affected the results by any chance? Do you think it maybe left some people behind that might have been there that weren't, or some people
I,
up there that shouldn't have been?
yeah, it's hard to say how it would have turned out a different way if we all jumped in
Hmm.
this at the same time. I think in the end it was only maybe 10 girls that didn't jump in at the first horn. So yeah, I don't think there was a significant person that didn't make a group or yeah was left too far behind. Personally, I think it wasn't even that bad for me because the first 200 meters or 100 meters I didn't have to fight too much, which yeah usually throws me off a little bit at the start. So because I was jumping in late, I had more space and
Complete clean
I
water.
could just
You
get
all
into
go
the
so I
water.
don't get you all go so I don't get touched. Off you go. All
Yeah,
right. I'll wait for the second
exactly.
horn. Thanks. I love it. And you were in a little bit of the deep. Did you feel like where you were, the water was running a fraction quicker, maybe, or were you're kind of towards the center of the river, weren't you? And
Yeah, I was. I got to um, pick my position as the 12th person, I think.
yeah, yeah.
So the way that pontoon draw works is that the first 10 pick their spots, but you don't know where they go. And then the rest just go one after the other.
Hmm.
So that is done 2 days before the race. So as we're walking down to the pontoon, everyone already knows where they're gonna stand, and my tactics sort of were to be on the inside line towards the buoy of the top 10. So I was quite happy with where I was
Cool.
starting. I can't say about the river. I mean, it was running so quick
Oh,
everywhere, so I don't think it
yeah,
was
true.
that much quicker in the middle than it would have been further outside.
Yeah, but you had a solid swim. You were out of the water, I think I saw in 15th, which
Yeah, I
maybe
was really happy. I think I had the best swim I could. Maybe I could have, yeah, come out a couple of spots further ahead, but it was a really really hard swim, and I had to fight a lot to just hang on to the back of the main group. And I
hmm
think that was where I came out. It was the perfect position for me, just close enough to actually ride back up into the first group.
hmm
And I was actually also the last person to make that front group. So that was,
hmm
yeah, it worked out ideally for me. And yeah, but I had to swim really, really hard to just stay in contact. But I also knew that that was a crucial moment where I just had to give everything to be as close as possible.
Well, that's it. I think when you come out of the water, I think you and Laura Lindemann were right there together. You both made that push into that lead group, and like we talked about earlier with Yokohama, it was like that's pretty clutch for that race. And then nine of you then start working together on the bike. Um, did you start to think, huh, my odds are starting to look pretty good here? Did you ever start thinking about this is going how I'd like?
Yeah, as I came out of the water, I already thought it's a good position, but I knew that I had to ride really, really hard and just work my butt off to make it to the front group. That was crucial. I told myself I'm gonna give up everything, or yeah, I'll die trying.
Love it, love it.
So that was always the. That's also what I trained for, to be really strong in the bike to make up any deficit I would have out of the swim. And when I got into the front pack, I was, yeah, firstly really relieved that I made it to where I need to be. And I actually didn't realize that there already before I made it to that group, there were quite a few crashes, unfortunately. And then
Mhm.
I just tried to stay really safe in the group and also keep the pace high. But yeah, you start to, if you're in a group, you start to look around a little bit, and you do your own calculations about, I could run faster than that girl, but this girl is going to be faster than me anyways, and maybe I can run with her. um so yeah, I knew I was in a good position. And before the race, I would always say that my goal was to finish top 8, and I was in a group of 9, so I was really happy already where I was at. But
Yeah.
we rode well, but the chase group rode really well as well. So we didn't make up, we didn't have that big a gap after the bike. I think we had a bit more than a minute. So of course that's a nice advantage to have, but there's always strong girls also in the chase pack. So you need to keep the pace high and still run really well off that.
Yeah, it was a dynamite group you were in. When you're looking around, like you said, and you've got Bo Grand, you've got Flora Duffy and Georgia Taylor Brown and Laura Lindemann, who unfortunately did have a crash. But still, you're looking at that group going, and Beth Potter, I didn't mention. It's like, this is the runners of all runners in the sport. I mean, it really is a phenomenal group. So
Yeah,
it's
it
hard
was
not
it
to a
was
little.
really nice to be in that group as well. It was just really cool to be in the front pack. And I had one moment where I was leading the group and I thought, wow, just take it all in. You're in the lead pack at the Olympic Games. This is so
Yeah,
cool. You worked so
yeah.
hard to be here. So, of course, race hard, but also try to soak it in a little bit. And the bike was really aggressive as well. Flora tried several attacks. There were other attacks. So I just tried to stay safe because the conditions were quite difficult. And
Mhm,
as we
mhm.
talked about, there were unfortunately a few crashes. So I just tried to stay safe and yeah, ride hard.
Well, fantastic. I thought it was an outstanding race, that portion. And then, but you then positioned yourself like a true professional, first off the bike, through transition, first out onto the run. So you've set yourself up immediately to say, hey, I'm going to pounce on this run. Was that a mindset you were preparing yourself and getting set to do that and achieve it? Because it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to execute.
Yeah, definitely. I know my transitions are quite well, so it was always the plan that I discussed with Brett that I would try to, yeah, have a good second transition and head out onto the run, uh, yeah, if possible, as the first person or as
Mm,
close to the front as possible, and then just try to see what happens. And if someone is coming past me, try to hang on to them. And
mhm.
because when you get off the bike and start running, you feel terrible. So we discussed that I would have to just push through that pain at the beginning of the run and try to settle into my rhythm.
Yeah.
That usually happens for me, after 2K or so. I find my legs and I start to feel better, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. So just through sort of push through that uncomfortable feeling at the beginning of the run. And as I said, if someone comes past me, try to hang with them and then pick it up. And yeah, I didn't expect no one coming past me, so I just figured I'd stay there and see what happens.
You're like, hang on, what's going on? What's going on back there? What? Hey, this isn't what? You
Yeah,
start to
yeah, it's
question.
like,
Yeah.
what's that? That's not how I planned it.
But then, I mean, you then had Cassandra right behind you, Beth Potter. You had Emma Lombardi, obviously there as well. I mean, the four of you that now start to separate yourselves with your pace. Do you have an idea of what your pacing was like for that first kilometers off the bike? I was talking to Hayden Wild in last week's episode, and he was very, hitting sort of a 240 pace, and then numbers that I just blew me away. But were you monitoring your pace in that early stages?
No, actually, I had no idea what pace we were running in.
Fast, as
Yeah,
fast as I can.
I think I felt quite good. And at one point, Cassandra was running next to me, and I saw she had a watch, so I considered asking her what pace we were running. But then I was like, "Save your breath. You
Yeah,
still
yeah,
need to run more than 8K or whatever."
yeah.
So I don't know what we were running. I tried to settle into my pace, and I felt quite good. But I
Mm,
kept thinking like, this pace is good for me. I feel like I'm running fast, but I still feel controlled.
mhm,
But
mhm.
how is it possible that the best runners in the sport also think that that pace is good? So I in at that moment I didn't quite believe that I was at their level. So I was actually really surprised that they didn't already pass me.
Well, when you look at your run splits, which I have in front of me here, and when you run a 32:51 on, and listeners, you have to understand that when we're doing these 4 lap runs in triathlon, and I'm not an advocate for having dead U-turns, which we always seem to love in the world of triathlon, but every lap, you're having these dead U-turns, which one, throw you out of your rhythm, but two, they actually do slow you down. And so when you're running a 32:51 10K, I'd suggest there's probably almost 20 to 25 seconds in there of dead U-turns. So you had to have been running at such a pace, that people can't run any faster than that. It gets to the point of going, I can't. But when did you kind of think you're doing the numbers? There's four of you for the longest time. Did you have any sort of self-doubt creep in?
Yeah, I mean, I only realized that it was who was around me at the U-turn in this first lap. So about 2K into the run, I saw a bit how the girls spread out after the bike. So I realized, okay, it's the four of us running together, and each lap on the U-turn, you would see who was still there. So I think in the second or beginning of the third lap,
Yep.
I had a moment where it's like, okay, there's four of us here, and the other three girls are amazing. What they've achieved until now is just incredible. So I had a moment where I thought, oh, I'm gonna get fourth today. But then, yeah, almost had to be a bit mean to myself and be like, no, that's not true. You can't already decide the results before you finish the race. So you
Well
just have
done.
to try the
Mm.
best
Hmm.
you can, and the race is only finished at the finish line. So do the best you can, race hard, and don't already give up.
I love that. I love that you grabbed it quickly. It's like we can all have these moments of doubt creep in, and that if you can shoo it away, if you can slap it away and say no, and yell at yourself, like you said, it's like it's like no, you're here, and give this a go. And so then it was Cassandra who made a pretty solid move about a mile to go, 1,500 meters or so to go. Did you what did that feel like? Was it kind of like because you fought hard, but the pace just looked like it squeezed a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we were, or I tried to pick it up each lap. And at the start of the last lap, I saw Brett on the sidelines yelling at me and doing some motions. I didn't hear what he was saying, but I interpreted it as, you have to go, just go now, because I'm not the fastest sprinter. So he really wanted me to
Mm.
make my move early. So I tried to pick it up, and then about a K or a K and a half from the finish line, Cassandra went by me, and I think she just had that switching pace, and I couldn't quite go with it. But it actually was her move that split up our group. And I
Mhm.
think that was really good at first. And I watched the race back, so that now I know what happened at that moment. But obviously, I didn't realize it. But yeah, I accepted that she was in front of me, but I still tried to. I didn't give up. I still tried to pick up the pace, uh, my pace. Obviously, I didn't run at her pace, but I tried to pick up my pace as well, and um, try to put the other girls under pressure too. And I think once she made her move and established the gap, that gap actually didn't grow that much more. But I just couldn't respond in the moment where she accelerated.
Yeah. Well, you did respond and you did exceptionally well. Like you said, it was the move that split up that whole front group. So you didn't have to worry about a sprint finish. It was a long sprint from 1,500 out. Um, Big shout out to Cassandra Bogran. An outstanding performance, honestly, with all the pressure she would have had on her shoulders, being the hometown French girl favorite and all of that. Really amazing. But your performance there to stay within 5, 6 seconds of her all the way to the finishing line, outrunning a Beth Potter, also big shout out, Emma Lombardi. Just you put on an outstanding performance, all of you, and did the world of triathlon. We all just loved it. Me, I'm a big fan of the sport. So to see it being delivered in such a way was just absolutely brilliant. We captured what it was like the last few hundred meters already. But you held on strong. Outstanding effort to you and your team. Big shout out to Brett, and all your teammates as well. So huge congrats. Really, really excited for you, and it's going to be something that's going to be with you forever. So fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a great race also to watch. I think it was more nerve wracking to watch it than to race it. I've heard of many people who said they were watching and they were so nervous they couldn't stay seated on the couch, but they had to like walk around until I was finishing, because obviously when you're watching you can't influence what's happening. You're
Mhm.
not in control, so that makes you nervous. But yeah, I think it was a great race, and we all fought really hard until the finish line.
A big shout out again. Fantastic. Look, I know I've taken so much of your time and I've got so much more I want to cover. My goodness. Let's do this. Let's quickly shift gear. Um, I want to rewind the clock because I was chatting with, I don't know if you know Brad Beer. Brad worked with Hayden Wild in his team, Australian physiologist from Australia. A physiologist, Brad? Am I getting that wrong? Bodywork specialist. Anyway, Brad said, when I asked for questions from the audience, he said, "Where did she come from?" And means that in a sense, look, you've been there or thereabouts. This was a outstanding performance. I want to back up Brad as well because I think a lot of us are. This was your. This was your. Hey guys, I'm here. Hey world, I'm here. You've won races. You've done lots of other things, but this one was massive. So I want to rewind the clock and get a bit of an idea of where did you come from? So understanding where you found your passion for the sport, when did you realize that you had some strengths and talent, and when did you actually start racing professionally?
Yeah, I grew up in Zurich, and for the longest time they had the Ironman Zurich there. So they would, as part of that weekend, they would have a kids triathlon, the Iron Kids races.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned, I have two older sisters, so I don't know why or how my parents entered my sisters in that race. My parents, when they were getting older and had my sisters and myself, they started to be more active and get into endurance sports themselves. So we always have a bit of a discussion whether they started triathlon or they started triathlon because we started triathlon. So it's always like a bit of a discussion. But yeah, my parents did triathlons. They both raced Ironmans, obviously not professionally, but as age groupers. So they entered my sisters. They did the triathlon, the kids triathlon first, and yeah, being the youngest, I always wanted to do what they're doing. So I always wanted to do the triathlon as well, and that's what I did. So we would go back to that race in Zurich every year, and maybe at the age of 9, I joined the triathlon club with my sisters in the town next to Zurich, and that's where we started to train a bit more focused on the for triathlon. We also learned the transitions, but it was always more fun and just a
Mhm.
good group of kids and a good coach that would look after us and make sure we would have fun and travel to the races in Switzerland together. So I started to do a kids series in Switzerland, and um, yeah, I think it just grew, and I saw my sisters what they achieved, so I always wanted to do what they did. And our middle sister qualified for her first junior European Championship, so I would always follow in their footsteps and see what cool things they could do, and just train a bit more and be a bit more focused on triathlon. And so I also made my first junior European Championships, but I was never a standout junior or even in the under 23s. I won one European Championships in the under 23 category, but yeah, I wasn't a breakthrough athlete when I was stepping up. But I was always really consistent and
Mhm.
just really enjoyed the sport, and it's, as I've been doing it for so long, it's part of who I am, and I identify as a triathlete, and I really love it, to do the training and to be active and to be out there and yeah, just train. And then my middle sister started working with Brett, and after I finished my junior years, I also knew I wanted to, yeah, have a bit of a more professional team or coaching setup. So I also started working with Brett, but I still did my studies. And we would just take it step by step, start racing the World Cups, and then try, slowly get into a couple of World Series races as well. I think Brett's long-term plan for me was always to try and go for the Olympics in Paris, but when Tokyo got postponed, we actually thought I had a shot at going to the Olympics in 2021. I didn't quite make it. I was a reserve athlete for the Swiss team, but that actually gave me a really big push to try and make sure that there was no question whether I should be selected for Paris or not.
Yeah.
And then, really starting to be a professional, I would say, only happened about a year and a half ago when I finished my studies. So I've been only focusing on triathlon, since then. So that's
What's with the Swiss and studies? Every Swiss person I talked to always had to finish their studies or went back to do a law degree like Nicola or whatever. What was your studies? What did you go back and do? Or what
I
did you?
did food process technology.
Huh?
And I think the reason why a lot of Swiss athletes also have studies is that sport isn't quite as seen as a profession as it would be in other countries. Like when I tell people that I'm a triathlete, the next question is, so what else do you do? What's your job? So it's not really triathlon, especially because it's also not the sport where you can earn the big bucks as, for example, soccer would be.
Mhm.
People always assume that you do something else. So I think it's also important in the minds of Swiss athletes that you sort of have a fallback, something.
I think it's a good balance. I'm not knocking
Yeah,
it actually. I think it's really great. I actually think anybody listening should be understanding that it's worth to keep your curiosity and learning and finding a little bit of balance beyond just the hard work. Like someone like Alistair Brownlee was doing a master's degree when he won the gold medal in London.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I
you
think
know,
for my parents, it was also always really important that we had a good education, and they were
mm,
really
mm.
supportive as well to help us combine both. So I didn't, when I was studying and training for triathlons, I didn't have to have a part-time job to finance myself. Obviously, I already had supporters through the federation, but my biggest supporters would be my parents that enabled me to do both. So yeah, it was also important for them to that I finish my studies.
And what about now? I mean, you've got this Olympic silver medal. Um, you got a manager with Ronnie, right? With Iron. Have you got some endorsements coming in, some sponsorships? Are things looking pretty good?
Yeah, we're working on obviously making the most out of my success and setting me up well with partners for the future. I
Hmm.
think it obviously helps to have an Olympic medal.
Yes, it does. I love it. Well, listen, coming up, what are we going to do? LA Olympics, we're going for gold so you can match Nicola and have a gold and silver? Or are you thinking long course? Who knows? What are you doing?
Yeah, 4 years is a really long time, so still need to have some goals in between.
Mm,
I already showed that I have potential over the middle distances, and I actually also already did my first Ironman where I came second. So, the longer distances are really intriguing as well. So I'm at the moment I'm in the process of deciding what really, yeah, motivates me for the next 4 years. I could
mm.
also imagine to focus a bit on the middle distances and then come back for LA. I had such a great experience at the Olympics Games, so I wouldn't say no to another couple of weeks like that. They were just really great.
I think it's fantastic that you're going to have a bit of a balance. You've got a good team around you. Big shout out to Ronnie, who's also been on the show, and he does such a good job with his athletes. He really does put his athletes first. So fantastic. I want to finish up with the final four questions. Now I don't know if I even sent these to give you a bit of a heads up. So this is
I
going to be
don't think so.
this is going to put you on
I'm
the spot.
unprepared.
You are unprepared, so that's okay. You can think about it for a second. But first one, what advice would you give to your younger self? But you're so young. That's almost. But let's go back to it. If you were a 15-year-old, what advice would you give to yourself?
I think I would say to be patient, but also to commit to what you really want to do.
I love it. Well done. All right, next one. This one's going to be tougher, and as soon as we hang up, you're going to regret the 3 you gave me, but you're going to give it a go anyway. If you could have dinner with any 3 people in the world, they can be non-family, living or dead, so you can go back in history if you want. Who would it be and why? Who would you want to have dinner with? Anybody in the world?
So not family, you said.
Not family.
I know this question because I listened to your podcast. So whenever I listen to the podcast and this question comes up, I start thinking, but I could never get like a good answer.
Yeah.
But let's try.
Mine change all the time, by the way. Mine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect.
So actually, when I was growing up, I was a really big fan of Emma Snowsill. I had the honor of meeting her in Paris and talked to her a little bit, but I would definitely have her over for dinner. Then maybe Taylor Swift, because she's just a really big star. And the last one, maybe we have to balance it out with male. I would say Brett. He's my coach, Brett Sutton.
Yeah.
He's always, once he gets on a roll, he can keep talking for 2 hours. So I think it would make for some interesting conversations with the 4 of us.
I love it. Well, I feel like we can basically make that happen. We just got
to get... Do you have Taylor's number?
Taylor, if you're listening.
Which he obviously does.
So, yeah, I think we can get Emma for sure and Brett. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We're almost there. So,
yeah.
Okay, Taylor.
You're invited as well. We have another chair for you.
Yeah, I'll serve the table for you guys.
Perfect.
All right, where do you see your career in heading the next 5 years? We kind of covered that already, but in 5 years' time, if you could look back and go, that was an outstanding 5 years since the Olympic silver medals, what would it look like?
Yeah, I'd love to race Kona, to be honest. Growing up with triathlon, I would always watch the race there. So that would be definitely a bucket list race that I would love to do in the next 5 years. If I could do that and go to the Olympics for a second time and get another medal, that would be, really, really.
I love it.
Just great.
The smallest goals in the
career.
world of triathlon. Just small goals. And so if you want to do Kona, what do you have? You have next year. You have
it would be next year.
Or 2027. You got 2 options. I mean, you could always.
Yeah, and then 29 could also be. So
well, that's true. That's true. I did say 5 years, didn't I? All right. Let's finish with some real quick rapid fire questions, and then I'm going to let you go. We'll just do a couple of these. All right. First car you owned?
I actually don't own a car. I still use the one my parents own, so I don't own a car. But the one I'm driving now is a mini Clubman.
Nice. Your parents have good taste.
Yeah, and it's surprising for being a mini. It fits so much stuff, so we can actually put 2 bikes into the car and a lot of our other gear. So yeah, it's a handy little car.
I love it. Thanks, Mum and Dad.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
2 most used apps on your phone?
Probably WhatsApp and Instagram.
Nice. What were you doing right before you came on this show?
I came back from a swim, made a tea, and had a little snack.
Nice. Favorite post-race celebration meal?
Burger and sweet potato fries.
Good. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If you could be the greatest in any sport, what would it be outside of triathlon?
I really enjoy cross-country skiing, so I would love to be really good at that.
Nice. Greatest movie of all time?
I'm gonna say Mamma Mia. That's just such a good, like a feel-good movie, and you can sing along the songs, and so and ABBA songs. So yeah, definitely that.
All right, and greatest decade of music?
Ooh, I couldn't tell you. I just listen to the music, but I don't really like get invested in it too much. But maybe 90s, because that's the decade I was born.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. If you could go to anywhere in the world right now, click your fingers, where would you want to go travel to?
Mm, probably a beach, but it wouldn't matter where in the world or what country. But at the moment, we've just had sort of the start of winter has come early
I
in St.
saw
Moritz,
that. I was on a
so
FaceTime
there's
yesterday. It was
yeah,
raining and ugh.
yeah, the weather's been pretty cold the last few days, so I
Mm.
wouldn't mind a trip to the beach.
Well,
A warm beach.
I'm building my studio here in Florida, in Jupiter, Florida. It'll be ready soon. So when I'm going to have you back on, because I'm sure we're going to connect many, many times, um, we'll put you up here. You can stay on the beach for a few days, recoup, do a podcast with me, and then go back to the rain and
That's
cold.
perfect. That sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, Julie, this has been really fun. Thank you for sharing your story, especially Paris. It's just, you gave so much just then about, I love the insights of the emotions and the mental, what's going on. I really appreciate it. And congrats again. Absolutely outstanding. You worked so hard. It wasn't a fluke by any means. You made this happen. So massive congrats to you and the team. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Been an honor, and one of the nice things that's coming off my success in Paris. So thank you.
Oh, that's very sweet. Well, for everybody else, you can find all the show notes and timestamps and everything else at bennettendurance.com/media. All right, stay on the line, Julie. Cheers.